Yo, what up guys? I wanted to make a quick video because I get these questions asked a lot about if endurance is good, if melee evasion's good, if range and magic is good. So I kind of wanted to clear the air and discuss those builds. So let's hop over to Questlog because I have a couple builds updated on my current builds and we can kind of take a look there. So over on Questlog, on my current build one, I have 3 builds in here, okay? I have your staple build. I consider this one to be like a standard, right, for any spear dagger. However, I do have an endurance build as well, and I also have a triple evasion, which is heavy on the melee evasion build. Now, before we go into any of this, I want to really preface and I want you to pay attention to the fact that these things can change, right? So if you go into a build and you have very low hit, you don't need a lot of hit. But if you're facing a team or you're facing a lot of targets that have melee evasion, then you're going to want more hit, obviously. So when people ask me, how much melee evasion, or sorry, how much melee hit is enough, there's no real true answer. I play personally with like 11 to 1200 because I'm more focused on crit, but you can go as high as like almost 2k before buffs and you'll be fine. I really advise for any of these builds, it's always viable to have multiple builds, okay? So for example, you would have this staple build right here, and then you would also have another preset for your builds that would have more hit, right? You'd slide in more things that give you more hit, as well as changing your skills to like the hit one, the enforcer buff. So keep that in mind. Things will always change. There's no one build. You don't have to change anything ever. Kind of fits all. You kind of need to adapt to your situation. So the current build, the standard one, is it's pretty well rounded. You have our 1600 hit with this build. Keep in mind these numbers aren't going to always be exact because of artifacts and runes and stuff, but this is a good general idea. 1600 hit is not bad for this meta. There's not a lot of melee evasion in the game right now, but it just depends on who you're facing. Melee crit is probably one of the most, if not the most important thing on Shadow Dancer, okay? We rely heavily on hitting that max damage right up here at the top. We rely heavily on hitting this max damage, and the only way you get this top number is by critting, okay? So it's very, very important that you have a lot of crit or a decent amount of crit. Now, a good gauge for crit to have is anywhere around, I would say, 2.3 to like 2500, okay? That's a good general base. The more crit that you add, the squishier you're gonna get, right? Because you need to supplement other things in it. You're gonna lose evasions and whatnot. So you're gonna naturally be squishy. So keep in mind, anytime if you wanna go like a full glass cannon build and build a ton of crit, you need to make sure that your party is very good, okay? You need to make sure they rotate devos, like from the tanks, and your healers are really good at keeping you alive. That's the only way it works. That's why I don't showcase like a full glass cannon build, because it's easier said than done. You'll die very, very quickly. Now, I play glass cannon, but that's only because I know my party can keep me up. Now, in dominions and stuff, I probably would prefer going melee or triple evasion because you're like kind of by yourself and stuff. So this build would seem more ideal for like, arenas, dominions, all that small scale stuff. So back to the primary build, you got a good amount of melee critical hit here, and you have a good amount of melee heavy attack, which is solid. The evasions, I get asked this question a lot as well. Why I have more magic than I have ranged evasion. That's only because in the game right now, you don't really run across a lot of bow builds, okay, bow damage. It's mostly going to be staff doing a lot of magic damage to you. So you primarily want to go for magic evasion. However, you can easily cut these and get these like very close to each other to be more well-rounded. Another really, really important stat is the crit damage, right? So we're very focused on getting crits. So you always want to keep your crit damage very high. 55% is kind of like a staple, and then like with the Imperial set, you're going to get more in the game once you build your stacks. And also if like you do like Phoenix Barrage, it's going to increase that as well. So you can get this up to like 80% like after buffs. It's kind of crazy. So melee crit chance and critical damage is very, very, very important for our class. Heavy is important as well, but these are the 2 primary ones that you want to make sure that you have a lot. This is your damage right here. I know in these builds as well, I have arc boss weapons. This is just what I have. I don't want to make a bunch of different variety of the builds. If you have different weapons, just change it out and make the stats make sense. And what I mean by that, like if you had Crimson, your stats are going to change. Just make them make sense. You know, all you need is above 80 dex. Make sure you don't go above that 20 threshold, so you start losing points. You want 50 strength, wisdom, depending on how much you have left over, you can pump into, and perception is always nice to have when you hit those certain breakpoints. So just, I don't want to make extra builds. Just keep in mind when you change any of the weapons, just make your stats make sense. So let's jump over to the endurance build. Now the endurance build, I don't have this set yet. I only have my primary set, and the reason I don't is just because of unlock stones and stuff. But if you wanted to start fresh, endurance is very, very strong. However, keep in mind that endurance will not feel as good if you're not getting healed, right? Because you're going to be getting hit by everything, literally everything in the game. So it might be lower damage that you're taking, but you're going to get hit by everything. So it's naturally going to delete your health unless you have a healer. A healer is going to be very, very good for keeping up an endurance build. Now for this endurance build, the reason it's so good is it's pretty tanky, and you also keep really good crit. You keep really good crit damage as well. A little bit lower heavy, but like your damage basically stays the same for this endurance build. So it's very, very nice to build. For your endurances, you want to primarily focus on melee endurance because there's no other way to get it other than a couple of things. So I have 2,000 melee endurance here, and I have like around 1,500 of both ranged and magic. Keep in mind on your mastery, whenever you roll or anything, this is going to increase by like 700. So this is going to be well over 2K, as well as the mastery over here on the left side, enduring dash. This is going to increase all three of your endurances by 250 when you use a movement skill. So this is a buff that's going to have like perma uptime if played correctly. So you're easily going to have over 2K of each endurance, which is a solid base point. You're going to be pretty tanky. The only people that'll do a ton of damage to you is like full glass cannon builds. But in general, you will feel a lot tankier with this. But keep in mind, like I said, it is very, very reliant on a healer. I'm sure it's fine without a healer, but you're going to take every hit. So having a healer is just going to make it feel that much better. And the last build I'm going to talk about is the triple evasion. Honestly, since I only have my primary set, I'm probably going to do triple evasion first. Only because this is very, very good if you want to do arenas, if you want to do like dominions. If you're a solo type player, you don't really have a party all the time, this is a really good build. However, keep in mind your damage is going to be a little bit lower, okay? You have lower crit damage, you have lower crit in general, a little bit lower heavy. Your hit chance is not that good, but your evasions are going to be really solid. The good thing about this build, other than my weapons, there's no arc boss weapon or gear in here that you have to get. I know there's items in there that you can get, like the like for the neck, this noble birthright, but this is a nebula item, very hard to get. However, I know recently they changed it. You can get these in the transmutation, so this might be easier to get. This is really good. I would probably change this over and take that instead, and so you'll naturally have more evasion. Now you're at 3,200. So this is not as hard to get anymore. So this is really good to get. In this build, you can see that you basically have to change where your Imperial Seeker is. You have to get the pants and the gloves, and then you have to get the Forgotten Lotus boots and the chest piece. And the reason for this is because those pieces have melee evasion on it, as you can see. So very good to have. You keep the 2-set Imperial, so you have that crit damage as well. I'm staying underneath 7 or 80 dex, so I have more evasion. Because for this build, you're going to want to stay alive a lot better. You know, you have 60 strength as well, so you get more health. And every bit of the other stat looks good as well. So you're sitting at like 3,200 melee evasion, which is really solid. Keep in mind when you do your Shadow Walker, you're going to get your range and the magic up to like 2,700-ish. So this is really solid as well. This is a really good build for trying to stay alive, play solo, and take really minimal damage. But your damage drop off in terms of dishing it out is definitely going to be a little bit lower. So just keep that in mind. I'm sure there's other builds out there that you can build that give you better damage, maybe lower evasion. So keep that in mind. I don't claim this to be the best alternative for a build that you can do for melee evasion. This is just what I've been kind of working on, and I will eventually make. But this is ideal. All the runes are going to be melee evasion, because just like endurance, melee endurance and stuff, you can't really build that effectively outside of a couple of things. Now on the artifacts, you want to make sure. In my opinion, 6-piece chaos is very, very important, because crit damage, or crit chance, like I said, is very important for our class. So all the crit you can get is better. For the stats in here, You obviously, these are just like kind of like BIS rolls. You don't need to do these exactly, but this is what you would basically aim for in each of those categories. You can move this over to 60 just to kind of show you like a BIS set. But these artifacts, you definitely want 6-piece chaos. Just play with the artifacts. Hopefully you get lucky. Melee evasion is probably going to be the most important thing on the artifacts, if you can get that. If not, the regular evasion is good as well because it's going to go to all three. But whatever you get, honestly, it's all RNG, is just, you got to deal with. The key stats that you want to pay the most attention to, like the two top primary ones, is melee crit chance and the critical damage. These are very, very important. Having a healthy heavy attack chance is always good. And then having a decent amount of hit, it's not needed. Like I said, I play with like 1200, and it really just depends on who you're facing. If you're missing a lot of people, sometimes it's even better to just keep your hit rate the way it is. And just, that's not your problem. You know what I mean? Like that shouldn't be your target. You just need better target selection. You need to aim for people who primarily build endurance. That's your target. One more thing I want to talk about too as well. Weaken chance is pretty important. This is going to make putting on your lightning stacks, your poison stacks, your ignite stacks, all of those are going to be dependent on this weaken chance. In this T2 meta, there's a lot of classes that build weaken resistance. So having a healthy amount, and I'd say healthy like around 600, 700-ish, maybe even a little lower, like 500 is okay. But you want to have those numbers because this is going to give you a better chance at applying your debuffs, which is very important for us. Obviously, if you don't get lightning stacks on somebody, you're not going to get that endurance shred. So just to give you an idea, that's why weaken chance is pretty important. You can put them on your rings, weaken chance for the runes. So that's kind of a good thing as well. For stat breakpoints, you want to always try to hit around 50 strength for the heavy attack increase. Your dexterity always wants to be above 80. You can go higher, just depending on how many points you can put into there. Anything below 80 is going to reduce your crit damage, but give you more evasion. So depending on how you're building, like I said, triple evasion, you probably want lower than 80, but every other build, you're going to want higher than 80. Wisdom is very, very important as well for getting more max damage, which is just always beneficial for us, more damage. So as many points as you can put in here is useful, but don't go overboard. You don't need too much if you can't spare. Perception is good as well because perception not only gives you better hit chance, but it's also going to increase your weaken chance, right? Your chances. So this is good as well to always kind of try to get as much as you can. Typically 60 or 70 is ideal, just depending on what you can kind of afford to put. If you come over to the mastery tree as well, I have multiple masteries in here. I have one for endurance, and then I have one for different breakpoints for the mastery or whatever you're kind of sitting at, the different breakpoints. So I will keep the quest log down in the description below, so you can definitely check it out there. Like I said before I wrap things up, depending on your server, right, and the atmosphere on your server and whatnot, you need to change your build. If there's too much melee evasion on your server, then you need to add more hit, obviously. And you could do that stuff pretty simply by just changing some of the artifacts and maybe, changing some of the runes and stuff on your gear to kind of primarily focus on hit. But yeah, like in general, you need to adapt to whoever you're up against, basically. But hopefully I covered everything. If you guys have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I try to answer as many questions as I can, and I really don't mind answering and helping you guys out. So just let me know. You can also join the Discord server. It's in the description below as well. If you want to ask me about looking at your build or whatnot, I'll definitely take a look at those. But I think I covered pretty much everything.